So today we're going to be talking about zoonotic diseases, which are diseases that vertebrate animals can transmit back and forth between each other. And the reason these are important and interesting is that 61% of all diseases that humans can contract are zoonotic. And they come in with all the different types of infectious agents that a disease can be transferred by. So fungus, parasites, bacteria, and viruses. So there are three different types, or three different directions of transmission. Anthropozoonosis is when animals transmit the disease to humans. Zooanthropozoonosis is when humans transmit the disease to animals. And amphizoonosis is when the disease can go back and forth and there isn't a dominant species that transfers to the other species. And then within those directions, there's different life cycles. So you can have direct transmission when the vertebrate infects directly to the other vertebrate. Cyclozoonosis, some portion of the disease's life cycle has to occur in a specific animal. So an example of that's like toxoplasmosis, where it requires the cat or the domestic feline to complete its reproductive cycle. And then it can go into different animals, herd animals or humans. Metazoonosis requires, just like toxoplasmosis requires the feline for its life cycle, metazoonosis needs some invertebrate. It's typically snails and slugs that you see the most of. And then saprozoonosis, as toxoplasmosis needs a feline, a disease that is saprozoonosis needs some kind of non-animal site to complete some form of its life cycle. So then there are different routes of transmission, just like any disease. Aerosol, when you become infected by inhaling infected air. Oral, where you ingest infected liquids or food. Direct contact, where you come into direct contact with an infected individual. And vector, where some insect carries the disease between infected and non-infected individuals. And then fomite, when some form of inanimate object acts as the vector. Okay, so now that we've talked about the different directions and routes of transmission, I want you guys to think of some diseases that you know that you think might be zoonotic. So,
swine flu.
Yes, exactly. That's a perfect example. So swine flu, do you know how it's transmitted?
No idea.
Okay. So what do you know about like influenza and how influenza itself is transmitted?
Again, no idea.
Involved in every year, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the zoonotic nature of influenza is the reason that it becomes a different strain every year because of farming techniques where animals are farmed in like really large numbers right on top of each other. The best example is China, where they do a lot of swine farming and avian farming right on top of each other. The disease has an opportunity to go back and forth between the species really easily. Transmission is simple, and then it can mutate and become a new strain quickly. But the flu is one of the the epitome of aerosol route of transmission. So when the animals cough, they expel the disease into the air and then another. So does anybody have any other diseases?
Bird flu.
Black plague?
Yeah, and what do you know about black plague and how
It's the fleas on the rats, and then the fleas get the disease from the rats, and then bite the humans, and then the humans get it, and there's all those nasty like black sores, and then die in like a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so that's a really good example of vector. Can you think of any other vectors? So insects carrying a disease?
Malaria.
Yeah.
How about rabies?
Yeah, rabies. Yeah, that's a really good one. And do you know what kind of route of transmission it is?
Raccoon has rabies, it bites someone and it just goes.
So that's direct contact, and it bites you and you get it. Another example of that is cat scratch fever, and that is a really cool one. Anytime you get like bit or scratched by an animal and you get like the scratches swell up, have you ever all seen that before? Yeah. That's bacteria from the animal getting into your skin, and so that's a zoonotic disease, because you get it from an animal. Go ahead.
So, would like food poisoning be like considered an oral transmission, I guess? Because it says individuals ingest infected foods or liquids or
So like
food.
when you get salmonella from like the tomato.
Yeah.
A good example of the oral is toxoplasmosis and Giardia. So toxoplasmosis, you can eat, animals will get the cysts, the toxoplasmosis cysts will reside in the muscles, then you'll eat the muscles, and if the food is undercooked, you'll contract toxoplasmosis. Or Giardia, that's why they always want you to purify your water when you're out in the woods, because you'll drink infected water with Giardia. And then get the disease. And Giardia is like a really good one for fomites too. So the Giardia is carried by an animal, and then it deposits its excrement near water. The water becomes infected, and then another animal comes along and drinks the water. So if there aren't any more diseases you want to talk about, we've pretty much covered all the different routes. We'll get into the preventative measures. Does anyone else have any questions? Or
I have a question.
yeah.
What's an example of aerosol disease?
Aerosol, influenza is a really good one of that. It's just when you cough or sneeze and then someone inhales that.
So, the routes of transmission, it's not necessarily how it transmits from one species to another. It's just how it transmits.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, the routes of transmission are generic disease routes of transmission. Okay. So the preventative measures on this are pretty simple. Basically everyone already knows them because they have to do with diseases. But we're going to talk about specifically what that means pertaining to zoonotic diseases. So the first is washing your hands, and then good food preparation, fully cooking meats, and washing your fruits and vegetables. And it's important to wash your fruits and vegetables with purified water. Does anybody know why? Can anybody think of why it would be a good thing, or why it would be bad to wash with water that hadn't been filtered or cleaned? Exactly, the water can carry diseases, and if you wash your food with infected water, you've just infected yourself. And the ones that are specific to zoonotic diseases, it's important to have good animal care with domestic animals, so making sure they're up on their vaccinations, deworming them, and then cleaning up after them, as well as not touching wild animals, and then controlling pests, especially flies and rats. Does anyone have any questions, I guess, on this stuff? How do you use it?
Wonderful.
Okay, so if animals and humans have like the same, if they have like the same disease, are they treated the same, like in humans as they are in animals?
That can depend on the disease itself, although typically, yes. Although humans get a lot better care. Animals sometimes just get put down.
Don't they also have like the recommended set of like vaccines for you and
Right,
you
so,
can't go there without
yeah, so you have to get a certain set of vaccines. So if there aren't any more questions, we're going to break into groups now, and you're going to do like a role play where some of you are going to be guests at whatever place you want to be, the fair or a pound or a petting zoo or something. The other people are going to be people who work there, and you're going to have to, somebody's going to ask, why do we have to wash our hands, and the other people have to explain it. Alright, so if you want to break into groups of 3 or 4, I have no idea how many people are here today, or not here. Just the kids maybe.
The burns.
Oh my gosh, she's foaming at the mouth then. Usually it's what you're just explaining why.
But it's still adorable.
Oh yeah! So when you're like hunting,
Well, those are probably an
protective measures you would take while hunting, like eating the meat. Katie, we have a question.
Yeah.
What protective measures would you take if you're a hunter and you shoot a deer and you want to eat the deer? It's like, yes, dinner! Anything you should.
Cooking, yeah, making sure it's really cooked really well, because you can.
And sanitize your hands.
Yeah, washing.
So even if
in the middle of the woods.
Well, they could have those.
even if the meat is infected beforehand, if you cook it really well, would that kill you?
Yeah, so toxoplasmosis, if you actually know but as long as it's cooked, the best thing is the instead.
Because it denatures
Okay, is everybody ready? Are we good?
Yes.
Who wants to go first? What group wants to go first?
We do.
Oh my god, there's a raccoon in our backyard.
Oh my god, there is. It's so cute. I want to pet it.
No, don't touch the raccoon.
Why not?
Well, if you touch the raccoon, it could bite you, and then if it has rabies, you have rabies. So it would just be like transmission from it to you. I admit that it's not foaming at the mouth and it's not trying to attack you.
It's so cute.
Do you want to make it a pet? Is what I'm asking.
Maybe.
Well, even if you did that, if you brought it to your house, you could bring like a tick, like the kind that carry Lyme disease, and then it gets on you, and then you have Lyme disease too. So you should probably just leave wild animals like raccoons alone. Okay?
Do I have to?
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other thoughts? Any other?
So I have a question. I know we already went over that the student disease develops different strains every year,
Mm-hmm.
but is it also possible to develop different strains per year in like different regions and stuff?
Like simultaneously.
Yeah.
You know, I would assume so. And that's what you saw with H1N1.
Yeah, that's what I
Is
thought.
that, and that was why swine flu was so bad, was because they'd already developed a vaccine for this year's strain, but then swine flu came along and no one had, and they weren't aware of it. They weren't prepared for it, and they didn't have a vaccine for it yet.
Right.
And so you saw it sweep through the world before the vaccine came out the next year for swine flu.
Right.
So you can't have multiple strains pop up at once. All right, cool. So that's it. We're done. Thank you very much. And
Thank you, Katie.